The Technical Delusion, Electronics, Power, Insanity by Jeffrey Sconce, published in 2019, explores the ways in which the increase of modern suffering, psychosis, and schizophrenia is situated historically.
One of the first to theorize disorder of the mind and body is George Chain in his 1733 book, The English Malady. He conceptualizes the human body as an apparatus of channels and pipes, filled with various and different liquors and fluids. Disorder could then take hold by exposure to the city, a stagnant atmosphere of a crowded, overstimulating life.
Breath and perspiration.
Diseased animals.
Crowded churches.
Putrefying bodies.
Sinks.
Butcher houses.
Stables.
And dunghills.
The balance of the body becomes a putrid symphony of disorder. Without proper precautions, the body, like the city, would become blocked.
Sluggish.
Foul.
And out of balance.
Koyaanisqatsi, a wordless documentary directed by Godfrey Reggio in 1982, provides a meditation on how the self conceptualizes itself in a relation to a rapidly changing environment of information and power. Reggio depicts nature as a life form, a beingness, and the metropolitan consuming an inhuman and synthetic entity. Koyaanisqatsi opens with imagery of the serene, vast deserts and glorious uncontaminated bodies of water, paving a way for a relaxing, meditative visual experience. Yet the reverie is shattered slowly with an introduction to scenes of industrial exploitation that provides an impetus to the creation of an artificial, high-paced metropolitan life.
At the turn of the 20th century, many respectable people believed telepathy was an established scientific fact. All that remained was to identify the part of the brain involved in sending and receiving telepathic transmissions and waveforms that carried the signal through the ether by an inextricable network of vibrations, waves, influences of nameless, numberless, and uninterrupted fluids.
At what point do technical speculations, beliefs, or convictions become pathological?
At what point do technical speculations, beliefs, or convictions become pathological? Who is to say where plausible technical speculations end and psychotic delusions begin?
A suspicion arises in the mid-20th century that electronic media seek to control us, perhaps even to the point of commandeering the nervous system. From the advent of the television, images of reality outside our experiences become omnipresent. Raised from a box, they cause changes in feelings and utter confusion as to what is real and what is not. The rise of technical delusions, psychosis, and schizophrenia over the past 2 centuries can be said to reflect this historical turn. Delusions begin to take hold of a media that implicates the self with various networks of influence and technology that penetrate the body through rays, beams, signals, impulses, and transmissions.
This evokes Marshall McLuhan's observation that the media constitute an extension of the human nervous system, where audio technologies,
hear,
visual technologies,
see,
all mechanical recording technologies are archives that
remember.
For the first time, cases of adolescents and young adults barricaded in their childhood bedrooms for months or even years appear to be on the increase around the world, connecting to the outside world only through online gaming and the internet.
As psychiatric conditions are thought to be increasing among a population, perhaps life in late capitalism is becoming more stressful, unfulfilling, and depressing. Sconce asks how many people would need to be diagnosed as clinically depressed, paranoid, and psychotic before attention turned away from individual pathology to social revolution.
Modern suffering can be conceptualized as nervous systems struggling to accommodate proliferating sources of stimulation. Freud writes that the normative ego, if placed in a position of escalating stress, disintegrates into confusion or paranoid defense. Most citizens of modernity have learned to adapt to the demands placed on them by industrialization, scientific rationalism, mandatory networking, spatiotemporal compression, and early, mature, and late capitalism.
The electrical bloodlines can be seen as pervading the city streets.
With the blur of time-lapse cars evoking bloodied veins.
Do you see the data exchange? Cars looks like internet webs and creating all these connections.
We see the destruction of buildings and the burgeoning modern cybernetic organism. Swarms of bodies begin to flood through new cultural centers of organization, spaces of consumption. Freud observed that
Man, as it were, became a type of prosthetic god.
this prosthesis, circa 1930, was the incredible procession of technologies that Freud had seen in his own lifetime. Freud argued that this had enabled humanity to come closer to the fairy tale wishes of omnipresence and omniscience that primitive man had imagined of the gods. Yet, he writes that,
We will not forget that present-day man does not feel happy in his godlike character.
the examination of mass consumption of images in the digital era takes force. The film lends towards a phantasmal visual experience of overstimulation itself. The images juxtapose rapidly paced human activity with the repetition of factory line production, suggesting the product of modern industrialized society is the overarching and totalizing presence of technology. With the rise of the extraordinary social, economic, and cultural transformations of modernity, a mix of mass media, mass culture, and mass hallucination emerges.
Koyaanisqatsi explores motives of modernization.
Cars are juxtaposed with military iconography
Tanks.
Rocket shooting to space signaling fascination with modernization.
and celebratory accounts of capitalist productivity.
And increased efficiencies of mass industrialization.
The plane in all its glory. Globalization.
E equals MC squared.
What did math and science really facilitate?
Explosions fire hundreds of fires.
Filmed in 1982, Koyaanisqatsi is situated right at the brink of the digital revolution, where Sconce sits at its present-day moment. The ideas and motives of Koyaanisqatsi would only be amplified today.
The organization of the new social body is not only mediated by technology, but fully integrated into the cybernetic organism.
Cybernetic organism.
Cybernetic organism.
Cybernetic organism.